settle for a boring hip yoke when you can chop it up, make it into a corseted, way more fun hip yoke. Let me show you how easy this pattern hack is. Well, I'm in my studio creating another skirt. I'm writing a book on this one skirt that I love to make. It's these two skirts back here. It's called the Rosy skirt. It's just got a simple hip yoke and the skirt. Really simple to put together. So what I like to do is vary the whole pattern and create different looks with this one pattern. And one way of doing that is to change the hip yoke. So I'm making a new skirt. I just have this like velvet hip yoke right here, and I cut it out and just sewed it together. It's ready to go on to, I have a black cotton skirt that I'm doing. But I was thinking, what if I corseted this? This velvet is so pretty. So I chop it into seams and top stitch it, and then I have like a little corset look. So I thought, I don't know which yoke to do, so I'm just gonna make both of them. And I thought I'd show you how to corset a hip yoke while I'm at it. So just to show you what we're making here, this is a skirt I made a few years ago. It was supposed to be just a simple yoke, but I cut it up into vertical pieces, sewed it all back together, and then did top stitching. So now it has like a corset look on there. So it gives it a little different variation and a little interest there. So what we would start with is the simple pattern. That's this right here. This is the yoke pattern. It says cut 2 on the fold. So when it comes out, it's one, like a front and then a back. So we have just a simple piece. So what we're gonna do is cut these into vertical seams, add notches, and then seam allowances, and then put it all back together. So the notches are really important because once you take the pattern piece off, you won't know which way everything goes, and then you'll get it all crooked. We also want to add grain lines in here so that the whole yoke just is right on the length grain, so that it doesn't, stretch and pull in different ways. We want it to lay really flat. So let's get into this. So I have some of this pattern paper I love. It's just like it looks almost like a Pellon, but it's like a thicker tissue paper. I have it on my website in the store. I got this at an expo, and it comes in rolls like this. It's kind of expensive, but it's really great stuff. And I've had this for like a year. I don't really use a lot of it, and it's wider too, so it's pretty good. The first thing I do is I'm going to trace this whole yoke pattern right here. So I got this Sharpied here, and then I'm just going to be cutting this out here and get this really straight. Make sure I just kind of went around a Sharpie so you can see it. I also, on this yoke, I like to extend my waist out 3/4 because I have a thicker waist than the pattern. And I'm gonna mark it down there. Get this traced really well. Like that. So this is the center front, so I'm going to put a center front mark there. And I know I'm going to do a seam. Change that one. I like this ruler better. These are the older rulers, the invisible rulers, and these are their newer ones. They have them clear here, so they're a lot easier to use. I keep pulling that one out. So I'm going to do all 5/8 inch seam allowances because that's just the easiest way to remember. Most fashion patterns are 5/8. So I'm going to add 5/8 to the center front right here. That is a half past. If you don't know how to use a clear ruler, I have a video on how to use a clear ruler. It's either called a clear or an invisible ruler. So that's there. So there's 5/8 right there. I'm going to add a notch right here. Now one thing I want to do is, so I use this cutting board right here, is I'm going to put this center front line right on one of these lines on the cutting board, and then I'm gonna make sure, actually what I'll do is cut this out right here, just get a chunk out here, and then I'll be able to have just this piece here because I'm going to cut this up and then I got to put it back on the paper there. So then I've got this right here. I got to make sure all the grain lines are in this cut, but I'll do that after I get this all decided on. So I think the first panel, so if this is the center front, the seam, there's going to be a seam right here. The first one's about 3 inches in, right here, like that. And I'm just going to take it out maybe 1/4 of an inch so it has an angle to it. So I'm just going to make a line right there. So this one's about 3 1/4. And I'll do the other one about 3 inches, so 1, 2, 3. So this cutting board, you can see it right here. So I'm actually going to do it 3 1/2 so that this one's a little more even too. So I'll do a 3 1/2 and then I'll do it on the 4 here. So I'll just measure, now my lines are getting crooked, so I'll just do out about 1/2 inch here. Right there, so I'm going to draw another line there. I'm just going to do, so I'll have a seam here, a seam here, a seam here, and then your side seam here. And the side seam is 5/8. And it's already in this pattern right here. Also, if you need this pattern, I have the Rosie pattern or the Betty pattern, I call it. This is actually the Betty's pattern. The yoke is pretty much the same. So the Betty skirt is a lot easier to sew, but they're pretty easy. Okay, so I have, these are going to be my cut lines right here. So what I might want to do, just to make it a little different, is just get a Sharpie. My Sharpie's a little on the duller side, which is good actually in this case. So these are going to be my cut lines. So I'll get it confused when I go and add the, let's see, when I go add, I get the grain lines in there and then all that. So those are going to be the cut lines. Now what I want to do is add notches. I'm actually going to add them with a different color. So I'm going to do this center front notch right here. I should probably do, I think I'll do, I'll just do one because I like to do double notches on the sides. And then I'm going to do the connection here will be, let's say right here, this notch and this notch. And then we want to connect this one. I'll do a single and a double. So I think I'll do like a double notch here. Oh, and I'll do a double notch here. I'll do 2 of them. Just gotta make sure they're not, you don't want them kind of close to this one so that if you don't cut the second double notch, you you think it's that notch. Just kind of fool yourself. Then we have, I'm gonna put a double notch here. Right there. So the single in the center, this was center front and center back actually. So I'm gonna put and center back because there's cutting 2 of these. So now I need to put in the grain lines. What I'll do is I'll do this color right here. And the grain line works if this line right here is on one of your lines right here. So the grain line could be actually right, it's on that center front. I'm just going to draw one in here. And I'm going to use this other line here. Like there, so there's that grain line. And then the other one, the grain line goes, you want it straight, so it's right on this line right here. So the grain line on this one is right there. So because the grain has to follow straight through here. And then the other grain line is here. It looks a little strange, but that's how the whole skirt will then hang really straight without having twists and turns in the fabric. Grain lines are really important. I also have a video out on grain lines. If you don't understand about grain lines, it'll really help. So now I have my basic pattern pieces done, and now I need to cut all of the pattern out. And this is curling, making trace. I'm actually gonna, you can see it from this side. That's the beauty of this pattern paper too. I'm gonna get it right on that line, like that. Oops. I could iron this, I think, too. Get it cut. If you use that pattern paper, you can't see through it the other side. But and this one just molds a lot better. The pattern paper is so noisy, and it's got all those little letters on it. I don't know if you've seen pattern paper, but it's kind of in the way. And when you can see through it and use this cutting board, it really helps. So this is the cardboard cutting boards. I don't use the plastic ones because I like to put my pins through things and hold things down. Okay, so there is that. Now I gotta cut. I'm gonna cut on these Sharpied lines here. Right there. And right here. Okay. And now I need to add seam allowance to these pieces. One way of doing that is you get more of your fabric here, or you can tape, tape your seam allowance. What's that, curly is crazy? Cut that off, get this under control. So if you want one fresh pattern, it's good to, but then you have to transfer all the grain lines back over too, which is not a big deal, but. And then I got all my notches and everything. So sometimes it's easier just to tape everything, but then tape on here is annoying. Like this one is, I would just need a seam allowance on this side here. This one is a double, has seam allowance and seam allowance on both sides, and then this one is seam allowance on that side. So if I were just to trace them, so I'm actually I'll just do this one completely. So I'm gonna start, so I got my paper down here. I'm going to start with the grain line. I'll put it on, I had to make room for the seam allowance, so I'll put it on this line here. Right there, get a line. Did I say seam allowance? I meant grain line. I'm not sure if I said that. And I'm going to pin this right here, exactly on that line. Right there. Okay, I'm going to put some more pins here. So I got my grain line on first. Now I'm going to add seam allowance. If I can get these my pins out of the way. That's the trouble with these. So I'm going to do 5/8 inch seam allowance right here. I'm going to put the 5/8, that's that second line right here, right on that cut line. And I draw in my 5/8. And then I connect it. I'm also going to have to trace these lines because I'm going to be just picking this whole pattern up. I'll trace this, like that, and then I have to get the other side done right here. 5/8, like that, and this gets connected here. I don't want to lose this pattern piece because I still got to transfer my notches right here. Okay, now I got to transfer the notches. So I'm using this color. I'm going to put them right here and here. That and that. These have to be accurate so you know where they're going to connect to the other one. There's this notch here, right there. And this notch here, right there. Okay, now this pattern piece is done. And then I'm going to connect these. Now there's a 5/8 inch seam allowance already on the lower hems right here, because all I did was do the vertical. So if I did dashed lines, you could kind of tell. That sometimes helps you visualize where the seam allowances are, like that. So I'm going to put 5/8 seam allowance. 5/8 seam allowance here. Just helps you visualize. I'm going to draw this line a little better, connect it. And then I'm going to give this a title. This one is the middle. So we got the front or the center, and then this one's the middle. Oh, the pen doesn't work very well. I'll just write with a pencil. Middle yoke. So we'll have the side yoke, middle yoke, and front yoke. Front and back yoke, actually. Okay, so that one is done. So now the other ones, I need to just simply tape the seam allowance on here so I don't have to trace all this stuff right here. Because this one would be tape and tape, and then it gets a little annoying. So I'm going to put a piece of tape all the way through here. That. try to get long enough tape, but then it always twists on me. There's that there, and then I have this other one. Oh, that's this one. And then this one has the tape here, so then I'm gonna just tape, actually I'll just get these ones first. Take this out. So I'm just gonna cut this off. There's that. Okay, now I'm gonna work with this one here, and I gotta just add 5/8 to this one right here. 5/8. Okay. Have that. That. Then I have to get my notch back here. Right there. And then this notch right here. Right there. Okay. I'll cut that off. Right now, I'm going to put a seam allowance on this other side, right here. There. Okay, got that taped down. Now I need to add 5/8 to this side. So my 3, so that one pattern piece turned now into 3. Now I'll label these. This is the side yoke. This is the center front, center and center back, center front and back yoke, like there, center front, center back right here. And then this is the middle yoke right here. So this is where this gets sewn here. Notches matching up right there. Make sure they're all there. That goes like that. And then this one, these are notches here, go like right here. And then that goes like that. See, this is the tape where it's right there. So the grain lines are all still going straight on the grain. If you don't do the grain lines, you'll have twists like this, and kind of like this and that in the fabric. So you really got to watch. The grain lines are important. So now I'll cut this out of my fabric right here. I also need to cut 4, because there's a 2 on the front, 2 on the back. This is cut 4, and this is the front and the back. Yep, still cut 4. I think about that sometimes. Watch this line here. I have to come down. Making sure that's square there. Right there. Line that grain line up there. Okay. Okay. Now to pin all these, it's real flat. I'm gonna, because it's velvet. The velveteen's not as bad as velvet, but velvet really slips around a lot. I'll take these out. I'm gonna put a lot of pins in here so that it stays real flat and I get a really straight cut. These pinking shears. It's a little tough, but it's worth it because this, I hate when this frays. I've got the pieces cut out. I think what I'm gonna do is give these a number. The center one I'm gonna do a 1, do a 2 on the middle, and a 3 on that one, because what I need to do now is clip the notches. I always like to clip the notches before I take the pattern pieces off, and I like to just do little nips right here, so I don't have to do like V's or anything. I'm just going to make sure I get a 3/8 inch nip, maybe a 1/4 to 3/8, so double notch right there. And when I take these off, because now I have to cut another set right here, I'm actually going to put a chalk on the back side, chalk mark. I'm going to put 3 like that. So that's number 3 like that. And then I might make a mark for the top there too, because that looks like an M. But and now I have these little notches right here that you can see when you open it up. So then I'll keep that on until I get the other ones there and then line them up. So little notches, double on this one, double on that one, and then this is number 1. I also, well, I guess I don't need to. I was going to say I put in notches here, but I don't need to. And then again, I'm going to put, open this up. Put a 1 here, but I'm going to put a mark here for the top. Okay, so there's that. Because when you take these off, you don't know what side is what. And velvet too has a nap. So if I turned it around, one side would be light colored and like a light shading, the other one would be dark shading, which actually could be kind of cool sometimes. You could purposely do that, do like a light and a dark. Probably have to try that next. Okay, so take these notches out, and I'm going to write, get this apart, I'm going to write a 2. And I'm going to put nut top and top. Okay, so then, now I have to cut out the second layer. All right, we have our pattern pieces, center, this middle, and the side. So we got these here. So what we're going to do is do a center, make sure I have the notches. I like to keep these kind of close here so I can guess where to see the notches. So we got 2 of these right here. I'll put some, make sure those are there. I'm going to be putting a lot more pins in here as I go because velvet slides a lot. I'll be sewing it all the way from top to the bottom. Not the other way around each time either. So there's the 1, then I have a 2, and there's the 2, should match up these notches here. We have those 2 notches, and then the 2 here, those 2 notches here. I'll put pins at the notches and then go and repin them, pin some more. These 2 right here, okay, there's that. And I have the 3, doing it from the back, the wrong side up here. And then the 3 is this double notch here. A little double notched, and there's a double notch here. That's how I know I'm correct. These notches are matching up. Right here. All right, put tons of pins in here because of the velvet. And that's how that looks right there. So now I gotta go and sew all these. I'll be sure to sew them from top down in case there's any slipping so that the ends, if they slip, they all kind of slip together. So now to the sewing machine. I'm going to use a seam guide on the 5/8 inch mark right here. Make sure I get all these 5/8. Ooh, it's a lot of pins. I'm going to seam number 1, like that. All right, I'm done with that. That wasn't too bad. The velvet didn't slip too bad, so that was great. But now I have all my little numbers, or 1, 2, all that right there. I know it's correct. All my lines, top lines are up on the top. And what I want to do too is also want to put a notch, because after I press this, all these marks are going to disappear. And so I want to make sure I don't get the top confused with the bottom part. The bottom has a little bit slight curve on it, but yeah, I actually added to my side seams because this almost looks kind of like a square, but it does have a little bit of a shape. So what I'm going to do is put a notch on the bottom part. So on my top here, I'm going to put like a little tiny V right here, not too deep, right there on the bottom like that, so I could see when I go and put the skirt on it. If I put it up on the top, I use that fold over elastic. It just cups over barely a ½ inch, and if I get the V too deep, it weakens that fabric there, and then if it gets stretched, I've had this happen in a couple skirts. I'm like, why is this tearing? And it was because I had put a notch on the top, and it, the elastic just went over it a little bit, and it started to tear it. So But that is ready to go. Now I need to go press this, and I'm not going to press the seams open, which normally we kind of would, but you could actually press them open and then do a top stitch on both sides of the seam. That would actually look kind of cool. Actually, I might, if this is too hard to sew on velvet, I might do that. But what I want to do is I'm going to push these seams towards the side seams, these first two ones. The middle one I can either side, and then these other ones, those go to the side seams. And why I do that is this will become bulkier right here, and then I'll top stitch over it, and it'll give it like that look where it looks like there's a boning in there, because it'll be a little puffier. So that's actually a cool way to make it look that way. So now I'm gonna go press these, and not gonna trim the seams or anything. I just want it to be kind of bulky, and then get a little press. And also irons, I can't put an iron directly on velvet because it crushes it, so I'm going to use a Vella board and get this all pressed, and then I can top stitch it. So now to press these seams so that they're nice and flat, because I'm using velvet, I got to use a Vella board right here, and that keeps this pile, velvet, it's called a pile, keeps it from crushing. So here's your seam. If I wanted to press it open, I would be pressing it open, but I want a thicker look on that side, so I'm going to be pressing the seam towards the side seam. I go like this, and this is where all my marks iron off. Use the steam on it and let that cool. It's much easier to get, if you iron it on the top side, you can get this seam really flush right here, like real flat, but I can't put an iron on top of the velvet, so I'm just making sure it's really not bumpy right there. Okay, let me get this. This seam also goes towards the side seam, goes that way. That. And then this is my center seam. I could press it open and do that, but I think I'm just going to pick a side. And look at this, this tells me that it's slipped here, and so that one side that might be a little longer than the other, a little wider. But I think I'm just going to let it go. These are supposed to be matched up, but velvet slips a tad, so okay, now I'm going to push these seams right here towards the side seam. It's going to go. I love this iron. It has a great steam button right under here, so I love a lot of steam. This one, it was only about, I think between $30 and $40. It's a Sunbeam. I have it on my store on the web page. I'll put a link below too. They've changed styles so much, but it's a really great iron. I used to buy very expensive irons in sewing, and I find the cheaper these, I don't know, they're just working so good. And I have a spool here, and it's been strong for a long time. All right, so I got this pressed over like that, and now when I sew these, I want to make sure that these seams are real flush. So now I need to top stitch right on the bumpy side of this, right straight down. I'm going to use white thread, kind of do a sample first with this velvet, what's going to show up best. I could use a stretch stitch along here, which is it has 3 layers of thread on each stitch, and that will really show. Could use the top stitch thread or the heavy duty thread, but the sewing machines don't like it very well. So I did a sample of the top stitch. I rolled this velvet over 3 times to kind of mock what the thickness of the fabric is. And I really like this lower one here. This is a stretch stitch, and on the longest that my stretch stitch would go on my machine, which was number 4, and so I wanted it longer so that it really shows. This was just a regular stitch on the 4, and it doesn't, kind of the pile of the velvet hides it. On any other fabric, it would probably turn out really good, but the pile on these, you know, hides the white thread, and I really want it to show because I did all that work and I'm trying to make it look like a corset, so I want it to show, right? But I think I'm gonna go with the stretch stitch. It takes a little longer to sew it, and just go over all of my seams here. So I've got 1, 2, 3 thicknesses, and on the side seams, when I sew these together, I'm just gonna do them regular and decide, I don't want to well, I can't top stitch those. I mean, I could, but then what if I have to take it out and it's too big, kind of thing. Sometimes that happens. That's always good. But I'm gonna go ahead and start top stitching right here. The seam is here, but my presser foot edge is here. It's about 1/4 inch off. I'm just gonna kind of guess right away. Sure. Kind of see it. Feel it. I'm making sure the seam stays pressed over. There's my first seam. Looks great, nice and dark. See, you don't need top stitch thread when you have a stretch stitch. Also, this thread is it's kind of thick. It's not top stitch or heavy duty thread, but it's yay! This looks so cool. Oh my gosh. It has, the top stitch came out really good. I think it's pretty straight. I couldn't use the edge of the presser foot to go by because where the stretch stitch went, that's where the needle was, so I wasn't able to change the needle position. Pretty good. Yeah. So now I have 2 of these. Put them right sides together. Make sure I have the top to the top. Sew the side seams, and I have a corseted yoke. It's done. Oh, my corseted yoke went from boring, well, that's nice, to a little more pizzazz. I love the look of these corset yokes. Oh, this looks so wide. I'll go like this. But I love I mean, you could just top stitch these, right? You're probably thinking that, but no, you need the like seam and the raised, I like the dimension of the fabric for it to really look like a corset look. Otherwise, it'll just look like it's got stitches down it and probably look kind of odd, actually. I might try it, but I don't need to because I think it'll just look odd. But let me know if you're going to try this. It was pretty simple to do, just cutting it. Really important to get the grain lines right because you can see how straight that these are hanging. If you just put in lines and don't pay attention to the grain lines, you're gonna have like pulls and all, and it doesn't look so good after that. So definitely grain lines, but give this a try and let me know how yours turns out. It's really a fun way if you're doing any kind of skirt yokes to add a little extra to this. So I hope you enjoyed this little pattern hacking video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you in the next video.